Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage. We take a look at games, chat about the gaming news, the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today, we're having an update for Microsoft's layoffs, and it's honestly pretty awful, really, when we start taking a look at this. So we got some updated numbers. Okay, King has 200, ZeniMax 164. We didn't have that before. Turn 10 is roughly 70. Initiative is 50, with it being closed. Blizzard Entertainment has 100. Also, Black Shamrock, Virtuos. I'm kind of wondering, too, if they also had a little bit of layoffs because they actually just did a project for Microsoft, for Xbox. That was Oblivion Remaster. I wonder if they had another project that got pulled. And then, too, we also have Romero Games, which we don't know how many that is, but like the whole studio is done because, again, Xbox completely pulled their funding for the whole project. So, yeah, the studio's done. The game is canceled. Yeah, that's just, it's over. And we still also have Rare and some others like the Xbox, like Xbox Publishing, also Blizzard or Bethesda Softworks, and then also the Call of Duty ones. They haven't been filled in yet, but I'm sure these will be filled in generally over time. Now, the reason I want to talk about this, and it has been a little bit of time now, I think this is July 9th when I'm doing this. I want to go over kind of each individual game and then go over the omen of that is just really not looking good for the future of Xbox. And while I like Xbox, while I like Game Pass, I can certainly be quite objective about this, and it's frustrating. And something else too is we're going to go over just a little bit of the revenue split too that Xbox has, which I did in a previous video. Some of you didn't appreciate that, but hey, that's okay. But yeah, we're trying to be factual here. So like this is for Everwild. We're looking at 11 years of development, roughly 6 years of marketing, and then a full reboot that had to happen roughly in the early 2020s. And then Everwild still was canceled. And we had about 5 months after Phil Spencer's assurance that it was making progress. That was like February. And unfortunately, it didn't really seem to matter. And so, yeah, what we got to see is like, the whole game is canceled. The whole team is gone, right? We got to see that was ZeniMax Online. Rare, we don't actually know yet, but we're assuming that like the whole team is basically done. We do know that Rare is having layoffs, but we just don't know exactly how many yet. But yeah, it's been pretty much in development since like 2014. Man, that's forever ago, if we're being honest. That's only 6 years after Call of Duty World at War. Gives you an idea of how old, how far long ago that is. And so, yeah, this game, wasn't going super well. It was kind of a mess. And they also had some restructuring within the studio a little bit. They had to kind of reboot the game and start over some several years ago. And again, it's just been a mess of a project. So it's had probably some of the worst developmental stuff for an Xbox game lately. And yeah, it'll never see the light of day. So this one does kind of still make sense. But it's just awful that it really had to go this way. Now, the one that's a little bit more frustrating for me personally is Perfect Dark. So this has roughly been 7-8 years in development, and the whole studio is closed, which if we get to see here, if we take a look at the initiative, it's roughly about 50. This, I'm sure, will be updated at some point. Someone will catch wind of that. But yeah, roughly about 50 are actually laid off. And again, it's just 7 years, and the little kind of vertical slice that we saw, at least according to someone that supposedly worked on the project, there was roughly 3 of them that were working on making that vertical slice that we got to see is that, yeah, that was actual like real gameplay. That was some real assets and stuff. But again, it wasn't like part of the game build. Kind of like the tech demo that we got to see with The Witcher 4. It's kind of the same thing. So, but yeah, this is really frustrating because, again, this would have been a kind of a fun thing to reboot with the tech of today. And it's just, again, it's another 7 years. And maybe these projects, some of us feel like Everwild or Perfect Dark maybe should have been canceled sooner if that was kind of the issue that was happening, or like these weren't going to work. But too, like Phil Spencer really is talking out of both sides of his mouth, which is awful. And I don't think he knows really too much of what's going on, or he's just lying to our faces. That's certainly possible too. Again, we don't necessarily know, but I think the first is probably more likely. He has an idea, and then, or he kind of knows what the current roadmap is, and then he gets, from Nadella, the head of Microsoft, the orders, and then it's like, oh great, okay, I get to be the face for this again. This is going to be wonderful because yeah, we got to see this with like Japanese studios. We got to see like Tango Gameworks, which luckily got bought by Krafton, though that may not be perfect either. We'll have to see. We also got to see that too with, again, even like Everwild. We also got to see that with Perfect Dark, which apparently some were enjoying and some folks were excited for. And then here's this other one, Project Blackbird. This was actually supposed to be, in development since 2018. This was by ZeniMax Online, which they had, 164 that were actually laid off. And yeah, execs too were really excited. Even some people that were at the meeting had to pull the Xbox controller, I guess, out of Phil Spencer's hand so he quit playing the game so he could actually be a part of the meeting because he was so excited for this. So I don't think it was necessarily, his decision. But we also lost Matt Ferver too. He said that he's leaving the company, and yeah, I mean, I probably would too, honestly. And two, a lot the testing that they were doing, the play testing at Xbox, is that this was going really, really well. How incredible it is as a title that they're working, and it got axed today. The game had some of the best reaction from folks who play tested, and and they haven't heard that in years. And it absolutely, a truckload of folks gave high praise basically to this, and it probably could have been pretty good. And again, this wasn't just another looter shooter. But, and this wasn't just QA testers, but we're talking about even Microsoft executives that were blown away by the project. So it's like, why the frick are you guys canceling it? And it's not going through murder either. It's not going through a mess, needing a reboot, changing directors, maybe like Perfect Dark or Everwild was. This was actually going really, really well, and they canceled it anyway. And we were kind of looking at maybe, 27 or maybe 2028. Maybe like a launch title for the next Xbox. And hey, this really could have been cool, but why they canceled it, it's incredibly short-sighted. And so why is all of this? Because we take a look at their revenues here. This is from Tweaktown, and their revenues have been amazing. And from about right here in 2022, Phil Spencer said that, Game Pass was profitable, that they've been profitable as a company. Though, again, they really like to hide those numbers. So we try to be objective as we can here on the channel. But it's clear to see, though, that the revenues that they've had, even their lows, are higher than the peaks from the previous years. So Activision Blizzard King has been a massive amount of money for them. And all of this adds to over $20 billion a year just from Xbox. That's a lot of money. They're doing really, really well compared to where they have been. But this is where we get to the part of the story why this seems to be happening. Now, this is Microsoft coming out and saying it. Yeah, we're canceling games and firing people and closing studios simply because, hey, we need to focus more on AI. That's not necessarily what's coming out and saying, but let me show you why a lot of us think the way that is. Because Microsoft has made a deal now to actually restart 3 Mile Island. Now, it hasn't been used for some time. One of these reactors is all messed up due to an incident, right, in 79. But the other unit, which is roughly about 800 megawatts, is still running and is still able to be used. Now, it was shut down not too long ago, a few years ago. I think it was 2022, if I remember. And you can look more into this, too, if you wish. But ultimately, Microsoft AI needs so much power, it's tapping site of U.S. nuclear meltdown, which is a headline. And this is really what they're going for, because if you know anything about data centers or certain types of technology, is that there needs to be a consistent base load, and nuclear energy is so incredibly wonderful for that. That means that if you need 1,000 megawatts, you get 1,000 megawatts all the time, every second. And that's wonderful for data centers and some of that other cloud and streaming type of stuff out there that we get to enjoy today in our entertainment. But it requires that consistent base load. So green energies, coal plants they create a pretty consistent base load. So do like LNG and natural gas, same thing. And this is why some of these green energies aren't great. But yeah, they're actually paying to actually have this, and we're figuring out that this is pretty expensive. And so we know from the Palisades nuclear power plant in Michigan, they got a loan of $1.5 billion to help restart the nuclear power plant. So yeah, this is not cheap for Microsoft. Now we don't know exactly how expensive it is to restart 3 Mile Island. Again, it's just one reactor, which is about 800 megabits. But again, the plan is to get it running by 2028, and they have now a 20-year extension to actually pull power from that, which was put us in 2054. Wow, I'm going to be 64 years old, folks. Oh my gosh, that is going to be something else. But yeah, basically the whole plant can power uh, 800,000 homes every year. And again, this is just becoming a more common thing for a lot of industries. And yeah, they're assuming they can get about 835 megawatts out of it, or 96% capacity. And they're expecting that the cost, or the estimate anyway, from Constellation, which is going to run the power plant, they're estimating it's going to cost about $100 million per year to actually operate this kind of smaller scale nuclear power plant, which is crazy because that is just actually operating the thing with wages and that kind of thing. This isn't like getting the mothballs out and booting it back up. This isn't like the permit process, which is going to take years, and inspections. That's all going to cost money too. And yeah, this is going to be incredibly expensive. And again, if the idea is from 28 all the way through 54, what's the math on that? 16 years. 16 years. So this is going to this is going to cost like $1.6 billion just to operate, and then all of the permit process and everything else. And again, this is just basically for their AI data centers, which is insane. And it's like, okay, well, how much did Microsoft spend in 2022? Where we're looking at about $50 billion, and we're then looking at about 53 billion in 2023. We're then looking, oh, excuse me, we're then looking just through August. There's a chart here. We're looking at a total of $46 billion from January through August of 2024. So they probably spent around 55 or 60 billion total for the year in 2024. Again, the number just keeps going up. And now we're looking at $80 billion to be spent on AI data center stuff in 2025. When you actually take the time to add all of this up, we're looking at about 240 billion, which is roughly the equivalent value of the total capital of Sony and total of Nintendo combined. Let that sink in for a minute. 240 billion in 4 years for the total valuation of Sony and Nintendo put together. This isn't just PlayStation and Nintendo. No, the whole of Sony and all of Nintendo put together, just on AI data centers and nuclear energy output. And I'm sure if they can, they're going to want to build more nuclear energy plants, or they're going to want to restart some more. But again, this is a race against like Meta, Amazon, and Google and Microsoft, and they're all pushing toward this. And so again, Xbox is a little sliver and doesn't seem as important as maybe as some of us would like it to be. But again, Xbox is like 7%, maybe 10% some years for the entirety of Microsoft. Again, Microsoft makes over 220 billion every year just in gross revenue. Let that sink in. And then their profit margins are over 30% every year. They're usually between 32 and 35% every year. So that means for every 100 they put in, they get 135 back. It's insane. It's insane. And what sucks is that I think, too, when we take a look at all of the layoffs that Sony has had, they've had 5 in roughly the last 24 months. They've had 5 sets of layoffs. Even Nintendo as well, I think in 23 also had a few layoffs for their contractors and stuff, though that didn't really hit the news. But we have also had a lot of other big, third-party AAA publishers like EA and Take-Two and Embracer Group, and I mean, you name it, Square Enix, Capcom, whoever, they've also all had layoffs as well. And the thing that sucks is that as the layoffs happen, as the closures happen, as the pain under the industry keeps buckling and keeps getting worse, there's really not enough money to support everything like we would think. Because again, we have, where is it here? We have record profits, record motherfucking profits. And for a lot of these companies, for Sony as well, and for EA, and for some of these, I mean, they've made tons of money in the 2020s, and it just doesn't seem to be enough. It certainly feels like it should. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. And we can all have our theories on that. But I think what we're really frustrated with is just the further corporatization of our gaming industry. Because it used to be art, it used to be a hobby, it used to be fun, if we're all being serious here. Regardless of what you play on or where you play, even with PC, all of the BS that Nvidia is going on with a bunch of stuff, it's incredibly frustrating with all of the things that are, the artificial performance that the 50 series has compared to the 40. And I don't think the 60 series, when we get it, is going to be any better. And also, we're finding out that, like, even Sony with the PSSR, they're basically going to drop their upscaler that they invested in and go with Project Amethyst, which is FSR 4. And that's just going to be a drop-in upscaler that they're now going to take from AMD instead of investing in their own. So it's like a lot of instances we feel screwed, whether you're at Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, or wherever, or whatever third party publisher you enjoy, like EA or Capcom or Square Enix, or whether there's a studio that you like, and it's just like they can't seem to put the quality out. And then it's like, okay, we have $80 games now at Microsoft and at Nintendo, and it's like we just feel screwed. The corporatization, I think, is what ultimately makes us sick. And really, folks, if we're being honest, the only thing that is really going to, I don't know, change things, if we have any chance at all, is just to withhold our money. That's really kind of it. Because if we don't do that and we just keep handing over stuff for the things we don't like, what does that say about us? Foolish, insane maybe, because we expect things to change when we keep giving them our money and we keep getting like worse or less product or all of the above. And it's more expensive on top of that. I don't know, folks. This is just kind of an open thing, but like, it is insane. It is insane to me to just take a look at what the future looks like. And again, whether we like it or not, it's AI. Even Nadella at Microsoft said that right now, 20 to 30% of their code that's created, usually from software engineers, are created by AI. And a lot of studios within Microsoft and Xbox, and also in other publishers as well, they use AI tools to make their stuff. Because again, it saves cost, and they're all trying to do that right now. But again, when you're spending $240 billion in 4 years just for AI data centers, oh my word, that's insane. So what do you guys think? I think that this too should be kind of an open conversation, and regardless of what platform you're on right now, you're probably not really that happy. Again, chasing that nostalgia, those memories, folks, we're never going to reach those again. Gaming is what it is. And if we really want to do our part to try to change it, just withhold your money. Don't pre-order. Don't buy right out of the gate at launch. Wait for discounts. Buy less microtransactions, or don't buy microtransactions at all. And see what happens. Because right now, we don't even have our games as a product. That's what the whole Stop Killing Games initiative is for. Which, if you're in the EU or UK, you guys should sign up for that. Get as many signatures as we can, because maybe we can work through that angle too. But anyway, it's a mess, folks. It's a mess. So with that, folks, we'll see you guys on the next one. You can always follow me at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. Don't forget to our playlist. There's a lot of stuff I do there on the channel. And then you can also follow me over at Twitch and Don't Tread on Me if you like. And yeah, with that, I'll see you guys on the next one.